Hi, my name is Julie, and my next guest contacted me on Instagram, and we started talking about her story. And she's come on to tell her story. So this is Emma. Emma,
Hello. Hi. I'm so thankful I got to meet you and get connected with you. So I'm Emma. I am a full-time stay-at-home mom of 5, and I live in Ontario, Canada, near Niagara Falls. So to give you a frame of reference of who I am. So this is kind of my story of life with an MLM. So I read a silly meme online that's actually pretty good life advice, but it also basically sums up how I ended up in an MLM. It says, don't go to the grocery store hungry because you'll buy anything that looks good. And the same is true with our souls. Don't go out into the world with an empty soul because you'll fill up on all kinds of crap. And that's my advice. Don't go searching because someone will come along with a beautiful sales pitch about how they have the solution to your problem. They are just what you've been looking for. And aren't we so lucky? So as I've been processing through my experience, the analogy that kept coming to mind is the movie He's Just Not That Into You. I don't know if you've seen it or if anyone watching has seen it, but the premise is a woman narrating her life, pondering why is it that we often end up in these toxic, hurtful, romantic relationships. And that's basically my experience with a particular MLM. And so I say a particular one because like most women, I kind of dabbled in a few different ones, but this story is about a specific chapter of my life with a specific company. And so throughout the movie, the main character walks us through a specific relationship with hindsight, sharing all the red flags she ignored, which we all know is the most valuable tool is hindsight. So I'm sharing my story, hoping that my hindsight will, that someone watching or listening will benefit from my hindsight wisdom. So here we go. These are the red flags that I ignored. So number one is I call it the Hubby Hang Up. And I actually wonder if I've coined this term because it was my most common obstacle in sales and recruiting. She had to check with her husband first, or maybe her husband just wasn't comfortable with her signing up. And honestly, that was my personal obstacle too. My husband did not like this business model and I ignored his advice. And I want to be clear that my husband has 2 degrees in business, and I did not listen to advice on why this is not a good business idea. I could go on a whole side tangent about how almost nobody really understands these business models or how much money each person makes. And certainly no one talks about how much time you spend working for free or how much money you will put out as investments like gifts for clients or team members or prospects. But my main advice is listen to people and trust the people that you trust. So whenever I have a big decision to make or a step to take, I seek the advice of people I trust. But whenever my husband told me that this business was not a good idea, I would just feel this flicker inside of me get so mad. And I was already hearing that indoctrination of things like haters just don't want to see you succeed. And he's just not your cheerleader. And you got to find your cheerleaders. And my marriage was really already on the brink of a danger zone. And my upline, of course, didn't know that, but it was a vulnerability that they unknowingly exploited. And the team I was on always held monthly video calls called Stories of Hope. And anyone, anywhere could invite anyone to come listen to our stories. And I know that these stories were chosen and shared were intentionally for the emotions they would evoke and the hope they would ignite in potential customers and reps. Hope that our products would solve their woes, cure their family members' illnesses, solve their financial debt, like you name it. We had stories that could play on that vulnerability. And number 2, my second red flag is I'll be the exception to the rule. I knew the stats. 99% of people lose money on MLMs. And yet I thought I'll be that 1%. I was convinced I would be awesome at this. And I was told to visualize it, even start writing my NMD speech. And that's the title of a leader in our company. And I actually had a note card with specific names on it of people who supported me from the beginning so that when I got to walk across that stage, I would remember that they believed in me all along. Or even every once in a while, I'd hear a song and think, ooh, that'd be a great walk-up song for my speech. And even though I knew 99% of people failed, I figured they just didn't have the drive I had, the passion they had, the knowledge I had, and definitely not the amazing upline that I had, because mine must have just been so unique in this whole world of MLMs. But like the famous movie says, I'm the rule, not the exception. The third red flag is love bombing. And this is probably my favorite part about being an MLM is love bombing feels so good if you've ever got to experience it. If you need instant cheerleaders, join an MLM because I instantly had raving fans in my upline. one thing that my upline was really good at was seeing where my passions and skills were and harnessing that. And I truly believe they were coaching me to grow my own business and not to just capitalize on me to benefit themselves. The famous line we were fed is that our business is, we are a self-development course disguised as a health club. So it was logical, I thought, that all this coaching and accolade was for my benefit. I remember early on, I was literally told I was the it girl. I was the one to watch, the one to follow. Other women were looking to me for advice and inspiration. But ultimately, this just led to me doing a lot of free work because I loved hosting online events. What I hated was inviting people to them to come watch me and hear what I had to share. It probably should have been a red flag to me that like no one I invited would come to any event. And it really wasn't long, like honestly, probably a couple months before I literally ran out of people to invite. Yet I still kept hosting events because I didn't want it to look like I wanted to make sure it looked like I was working hard and always showing up and always being there. And it felt really good to hear at the end of an event what a great job I'd done when it was over. And so a lot of the stories I've heard from ex-MLMers is that they were great at sales, and that's what made them so valuable to the company. And that is just not my skill. But public speaking is. And I was told time and time again how great I did. And anytime any event happened on my team, I was asked to host the event. And I always said yes, because I just always wanted to look like I was putting in the time and being coachable and being available and like checking all those boxes of what it takes to grow in the company. And so when I say my team, that doesn't just mean my downline. I had like a really teeny downline, but it means anybody who is on the downline of my team leader, because we were all considered a team and a family and support each other, which just meant essentially working for free. So I would host events for other people, which was fulfilling in some ways, but financially not at all, 0% fulfilling financially, which leads me to my fourth red flag is this elusive time freedom. Is eventually I started noticing some contradictions between what I was sold and what I was experiencing. I deeply wanted to have an income and stay at home with my kids. As I said, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have been for 7 years. And at the time that I signed up, I'd been home full-time for 3 years. And shortly after signing up, got pregnant with our fifth baby. So I knew I'd be home full-time for at least 5 more years after that. And I desperately wanted to bring in money for my family. And I was just told this was the magic solution to that. But right off the hop, I realized I was working evenings and weekends. Like that was it. And on top of that, I would hear stories of NMDs about how hard they worked in their early years and the time with their families they sacrificed to get where they are now. And I just always thought, is that really time freedom? One specific story really stuck out to me of an NMD who missed her daughter's dance recital because she took her team to conference. And I just remember thinking how sad that was. And to be frank, I had the time with my kids already. I was home full time, not because of this dream business, but that the way my upline was coaching me to portray on social media, but because my husband and I worked our butts off in the early years of our marriage to be able to afford for me to stay home right now. Like I did an 1.5-hour commute both ways, 8 months pregnant with a 1 and 2-year-old, just so we could get more mat leave and get more money in the bank. And so I felt like anytime this business took away from my family was just so disrespectful to that sacrifice that we'd already made. And truly, that was the one thing I wish I could take back from a company that preaches work-life balance and family is a top priority. There's a lot of family time being sacrificed in the false name of time freedom. The fifth red flag was going all in. One final straw for me was this twofold realization that the only people who appear to be successful in this company, which to me is like they look like they work part-time but get a full-time income, that kind of balance, they were just all in. Like they were fully consumed with this company. To them, it's not just products, it's a lifestyle. And then the second layer to that was this realization that I don't want to be that way. At first, I thought I did. I was so envious of these women who got invited to special galas or speaking events, receiving awards and recognition, because of course that's all shared within the team to celebrate each other's wins. But really it's also just subliminal advertising that like, you could have this too if you worked as hard as that person. And so it just seems so glamorous again, that at first I was like, I want that. But soon I realized that so much of this business, recruiting for customers and reps, is based on relationships. And you're either forming new relationships that we usually call friendships, or making sure that you're always available to your downline, your customers, and all that. And it's really a lot of people to keep a solid relationship with. I just realized I was starting to see every person I met with this instant narrative of what is the biggest problem in their life and how can this company provide the solution? How can I fill that hole in their life? And I just began to realize how much I was exploiting my own reputation with the people around me, and I was just not okay with it. And I feel like that red flag could be a whole series and book on its own of just about paying attention to your intuition that way. I'd slowly started changing from my original slow-paced, present, aiming to be at peace within this cultivated space to someone in the rat race and basically trying to brand myself and make money off some products while I do that. And it just felt like it wasn't me. So through all this, it was extremely eye-opening and taught me a lot about myself. And ironically, it was one of the best self-development chapters in my life. But there is always wounds that come with that. So I also thought that maybe I would share some of the things that got tainted for me because of my experience. So the first thing was signing my name to anything. My husband and I joined a church a few years back and recently became members, and it was an intensely difficult decision for me. I was just so nervous about what I was choosing to represent me or what I was allowing myself to be ambassador for and sign my name to. I love Jesus, but I know there are a lot of people in the world who say that and then disrespect what he stands for, misrepresent him, and even hurt other people in his name. And I just do not want to be associated with those people at all. And it's helped me realize that a lot of non-believers see the church as a cult and cult-like. And I'm just so nervous to be associated with anyone analogous to a cult like that and using those tactics. I also don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of MLMs have such a big Christian community. Again, maybe a topic for another day because I feel like it's a huge topic that could have a deep dive. But basically, these companies will use any part of your identity and capitalize on it. They'll just dig into those emotions and why you love that about yourself and why you want that to be part of your identity and how you can link that to making money. And so for a lot of Christians, this means assuming that other Christians are acting with honesty and integrity. And I just feel like that gets exploited so often and is so multi-layered because I also know there's so many people who, like me for a time, didn't realize that I was, parroting these phrases that were so harmful. And so I just always feel like there is that caveat. It's not like every person in an MLM is a terrible person who's trying to brainwash you, like so many of us just think we just believe it and get indoctrinated and preach it and then go, wait a second, hold on a minute. And so it's such a dangerous, I don't know, I feel like sliding slope of it all. The second thing that really got tainted for me was social media. Like it just working for an MLM just ruined social media for me ruined for me completely. As I mentioned before, I began to sell my lifestyle. This was the marketing tool that we were taught to use, that my lifestyle is a commercial for these products. And I just quickly became so consumed with photos and captions and all day long, everything I did, especially with my kids, because that's who I was with all day long. I would just snap a photo and think, how could I caption this? And bonus points if it could lead back to the company, products, or business. And now I don't even know what to do with social media because I don't want people to see into my life because of how my life was used as a point of vulnerability to be exploited. And the third thing is healthy food. So much of what I did in the business surrounded healthy living. And I have 5 kids. There's a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of preferences, dislikes to keep track of, a budget to be mindful of. And just like I spend a lot of time in the kitchen making and cleaning up food. I also grew up in the 90s diet culture. I'm an 80s baby. So my formative years were that 90s, early 2000s. And I have family members who battle eating disorders. And so in hindsight, it makes sense that I'd end up in an industry that preys on the anxiety that comes with feeding children and maintaining that healthy, balanced diet and lifestyle while providing the magical solution to it all. But unfortunately, all it did was create serious anxiety and guilt for me with food. I became obsessed with wholesome food and would beat myself up so much anytime my kids had junk. And it took a lot of time for me to heal from that. And it's something I still work on. I have a lot of words that I just can't stand to hear anymore, like protein powder, keto, intermittent fasting, cleanse, or detox. And I'm just like, I'm done talking about it. Let's just have a snack and call it a day. So, but alas, amongst all these lessons I've learned, there's always things to be grateful for. And so of those, I also have a few things. Number one is my intuition. Hindsight, like I said, is a powerful tool. And I can look back on these years and realize I kind of knew all along. I did have that gut feeling and I was just ignoring it And who knows why? Maybe I'll never know, but I did learn that I can trust my gut and I need to pay attention to that feeling. Number two, I love public speaking. I hated English class as a kid, so it came as a huge surprise because I hated speeches and standing in front of everyone. Yuck. But from hosting so many events, I learned that speaking to people, whether it's sharing my personal story like this or educating people on something I'm actually knowledgeable about, I love it. It makes me feel fulfilled. And like, even right now, I'm nervous and I feel like I'm like buzzing inside, but I love that I've been given a voice. I feel like I've been given an ability to articulate my experience and share it with others and hopefully help some people along the way. And the third thing I will be forever thankful for is that I found a soul sister. The reason we find such great friends in MLM businesses is because we have similar vulnerabilities that are being exploited, sure, but we also find people with similar passions and hearts. And I have found one of my dearest friends from this business. She's helped me grow as a woman and especially as a mother. It's hard to express into words, but truly the wisdom I've gleaned from her as a mother is just indescribable and invaluable. And I'm truly a better person because of that wisdom and love she's poured into me. So she's definitely left a footprint on my heart and sculpted who I am today. Oddly, she was also my sponsor in this business. But I know she feels so horrid for her part in this indoctrination experience. But honestly, I just truly love her. And I know in that time, she was just as blind as I was in that season of life. So that's kind of my story of just don't ignore, pay attention. Because another line I heard was the red flags you ignore in the beginning will be the reason you leave in the end.
I'm so happy that your upline, your sponsor, you have this friendship still. That is so beautiful. So congratulations on that too.
It was really cool to be on similar journeys, and we both just independently took time away for our families at the same time, following that intuition and mother's intuition. And then through conversations, like it felt almost like a secret that we didn't want to share with each other of like, well, how are you? How are you? What do you think? What are you thinking? And just kind of being like, well, where's your head at? Where's your head at? And just kind of
So
right,
awesome.
right, because you're just so taught that anyone who's been in and left, like there must be something wrong or like just, it's hard to explain, but it's just they're on the outside and you shouldn't talk to them. So you don't want to be the one on the outside because then you think you're going to miss out on all these friendships because you're taught you're such a family, but anyone who's left, you never talk to anymore and the team never sees or talks to anymore. And so with her specifically, I was like, well, I don't want that to happen. And so we just both worked really hard to make sure it didn't. So it was just very serendipitous that way, for sure.
Everything you said is my experience. And we were in two different MLMs. It's so strange. I mean, it's not like everything you said about like having 5 kids, those things, but the details of your experience, like the red flags and then like all of it. It's so weird. And something that when you said about your life, it was like being on social media is ruined and like using your life was like a commercial for the products. That really was like, oh, I've never heard it explained like that. And that's exactly it. I struggle with that. I can't just post a picture of myself. Like I'll try.
Yeah.
Like, smiling in the mountains and I feel so fake. I'm like, what am I selling? Like, I don't think I can.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. It's like, it makes me be like, is it chicken or egg? Like, do MLMs have social media? Do we have social media because MLMs need them? Like, what would MLMs like? I'm like, what would MLMs be without social media? Because that is the commercial. And yeah, anytime I post something, I'm like, why am I posting this? I was like, no one cares what I ate. Does anyone care what I ate for breakfast or like how I made my coffee? Like what ingredients do I add to this smoothie? Like, why do people care? And it's like, maybe there are people that care. Like, I don't be laughing to mocking. I'm mocking myself of being like, I was just so taught that every moment of my life is so significant and valuable and a point at which you can make money if you just do the right things. And that's more what it is just realizing how much of it was financially motivated without ever that explicit explanation of it, I guess, right?
Yes.
It's told like, do this so that you make money.
Yeah.
It was just like, do this to gain an audience. Like, now I'm like, an audience for what? Like, my life's just like everybody else's. So.
And I'm not trying to get something from them in order to like sell a lifestyle, or it's always like you said, bonus points if you can like mention your product or get it like led back to that. And it's so weird because it's like you're already doing it anyway. You're already making your coffee. You're already making your smoothie. Why not just take a picture of it. And it takes over your life because it's not that easy. It is additional work. They make it, it's phrased like across multi-level marketing that it's just so easy. Just take a picture of it if you're going to drink your kombucha, and then like just put it up and just throw. It's just going to take no time. But all these things do take a lot of time. It isn't just 1 second, you know?
They do. And we often separated, where I was, they often separated your time into the stuff about this job. We never called it a job, but the stuff about it that's fulfilling to you, and the stuff that is income producing activity. So whenever people would track how much they made per hour, it was only their income producing activity. So things like posting my smoothie wouldn't be considered income producing activity. It's just like me sharing because I love to share or something, right? Like there was always these little nuances of classification. And so it's like, but if I added up all those hours of like, meal prepping and planning all that and planning my menu, and I used to do videos of my grocery. It's actually still all up on my Facebook. I was going to take it down. I was like, no, just leave it there. It's really kind of fun to see it come up in my memories and like, man, what was I thinking? It's odd, but I think a lot of it comes back to this craving of belonging and community. Like we all just love community. And I think that's the other vulnerability and human nature that's just so trying to be capitalized on and ends up being exploited, right? Is like I want to know, like there are people I'm like, tell me, what do you get at the grocery store? Like, what are you cooking this week for your family? Like I want to know because I need ideas. But then to just be able to put in that plug for the products and think, oh, I should be adding that. That's what I should be adding. That's what I should be incorporating into my family. And it's just, I don't know. It's like something else. So I just I like to share my story because I do think things that aren't talked about a lot, or once you decide to leave, is the shame that comes with that and embarrassment, especially because like, I don't know anyone that's been in MLM and their family members and friends don't know about it and haven't been sold something, to then come to the other side of it and removing yourself from that and trying to remove that label from yourself. And like, I know some of my friends, like apologies I had to make for being like, I pestered you like crazy. Like, I'm so sorry that I was trying to capitalize on that clout and that I had with you, and that influence I had in your life, and that relationship we'd spent years building. And here now I come trying to make money off it. And there's just so much shame attached to that, and embarrassment that I think really needs to be talked about, as well as like survivors of MLM. Like, we've just survived this mountain of guilt and shame and embarrassment that I think there needs to be more like applause for people that have left in that sense, because it takes a lot of swallowing your pride to come out and being like, you know what, I made a big mistake. And it's like, now it's public because I've been talking about it on social media for years, and it's really tough. It's really hard. And so that's kind of what a message that I want to send to women who are in it and want to leave is like, just do it. You will have, like, you're worried you're going to lose all your cheerleaders. Like, you'll have people that are thankful and proud of you for leaving and making that decision. You will, for sure. Yeah.
That stigma of shame is used to keep people silent. It's not mentioned. It's just, you only find out when you want to speak out. And some people, like I've seen on the outside when I was, exiting and then, going to speak out, and they'd call it like even a part of the sunk cost fallacy. And I'm like, that sounds good, but it doesn't explain how I feel. Like, it's so much more. It's so much more. And maybe that is a big part of it, but it doesn't just feel as something as labeled so easily as that. Like, sure. I didn't realize that so many others feel this same sense of shame, and so many of us that love to create, we'd like to create content, and we really like the products, and we are confronted with these Facebook memories every day. And so many people are going in, some people like delete them every day. And it's like, kind of, who do you talk to about this? How do I even begin to articulate my experience when I can't really even piece it together? Where do I turn? Like, it's you sharing this is so important for people to just hear how you're facing it.
I feel like it's almost like a mental, I don't know, it's like a mental or emotional trauma too, because at least in my experience, because my upline and the team I was part of, they knew how I said, they knew how to like capitalize on my interests and hobbies. Like, doing this became my hobby. There was part of it that was so fulfilling in the public speaking that now it's like, I'm like cold turkey cutting a hobby and that I love. So then it's like, well, now what do I do? Like, is that not part of my identity anymore? How do I find an outlet for this? Like, there's so much processing that needs to happen that way, of things. Like, like I know for me, my target a lot was moms and new moms and postpartum health, because that was my experience and the stage of life I was in. And then I was like, man, like, it's just, I'm like, how do I do that now? What's my goal? How do I do that? What's my play? That was sort of the terminology, is that this business could be a platform and a vessel for holding space for all of that to happen. And I'm like, I could have just done it without that. Like, I could have just like hosted play dates anyway, and meal prep nights for my friends, and like all this stuff. Like, why did it have to be tied to a product? And so it's just kind of like, there's a whole season of finding your footing again, of like, okay, what parts was I just doing for the business, but what parts did I actually like? Like, there is this self development that happens in MLMs, because like a lot of people high up are good business people, and they're good. They know how to read people and coach people. But so it's like, what out of that was actually me that I want to keep for me and do something with now?
That's something I struggle with, is like wanting, what do I want to keep out of it? Like I'm not there. I'm not able to have that. I'm not even able to acknowledge it. I'm not. So I think it's really cool that you're able to pull this stuff out so articulately. I'm like, I just don't want to talk. I just want you, please keep talking. Don't have a silence, because I'm going to fuck it up, you know? How did you, if you feel comfortable sharing this,
Yeah.
how did you go about like processing this? Like, did you do self-education? Like, were you listening to podcasts or books, or what was your, what did it look like for you?
Yeah, there were a few podcasts I listened to that kind of helped me, like differentiate these points. Even just like learning about the history of MLMs, I never learned about, which is just crazy. I said, what do you get when you cross? What do you get when you cross? What is it? Feminism and the patriarchy, an MLM business.
That's awesome.
If you know about the origin of them, that's how it was. It evolved from like door-to-door salesmen who would used to like sell vacuums and knives, and they were like, these women aren't buying anything because of the hubby hang up, their husband will buy them, but they talk to each other all the time. We should find a way that women are the ones sharing, but women didn't want to leave their homes because we were home full time. And why would you, like, you didn't have to leave the home, why would you? That was kind of the mentality. So like, how can we have them share with each other and make some money off their recommendations? And it's just like, they just totally capitalized on, which like is intellectually a really smart thing to do. But on the other side of it is like, oh, wow, yeah, that's exactly what happened. That is how we share it, is we look at our relationships and who needs what. And because that is naturally what we do as people and community is, how can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I help fix this problem for you? And then just throw in a sales pitch with it. It's just that easy. That's what we're taught. So.
It's sharing. That's all. It's so easy.
Yeah, it's just sharing. So, so yeah, just learning about that and there was a few different podcasts that helped me basically see these red flags, like just other people talking about it, right? And it's just, I don't know, I kind of write it akin to like seeing quotes or memes online where you're like, I don't know about anything that's happening in your life, and you're like, how did people know that about me? But instead of laughing, you're like, wait a second, how did you know that's how I was feeling, right? Like, it's just like, oh, like someone just saying something that just speaks to your heart and your gut, where you're like, oh, that is what I was thinking. And yeah, and then having conversations with people like my upline, as I said, my sponsor at the time, just being able to have those brave conversations to be like, hey, so I heard this thing. And there was a documentary, The Vow, that I watched, and just seeing other things from the outside and being like, hey, that formula looks familiar. And then being like, interesting. And just, I think a lot of it is just also being able to look at yourself critically. Like, is what I'm doing the same as that? Which is a hard question to ask. So I think for me, that's a lot of it, is just always being able to be critically analyzing stuff, which you're trained not to do.
Yeah. Was there the series of incidents that led to you to decide to see it for what it is? Can you Because it's like, I know when people would ask me, like, what was the final straw? I'm like, there is no final straw.
Yeah, there isn't. A lot of it is just these red flags. I know for me, I feel like what was like the beginning of the end was as I was trying to process this time freedom. There was a time we were at my in-laws and the whole family was going to the beach and I couldn't go because I had to do a connection call for a tower garden. And I was just like, wait, that's not freedom. I want to go to the beach with my family. Like I should be able to just go to the beach. And then another time was I noticed anytime there would be a holiday is when our company has sales. So June 1st through August 31st, we would run like a sign up a new rep blitz. And I'm like, right, because no one wants to work in the summer. And signing up a new rep is huge. Like that's not just a customer, right? Like then you're training and you're helping them and you're being like their three-way connection calls. And there was always a sale on Family Day here in Canada. There's always one in February. And Boxing Day to New Year's Eve, December 26th to December 31st, there's always a sale. And I'm like, because those are the times you don't want to work and people don't want to be working. And so I was just like, for a company that says time freedom, why would you put these amazing deals where obviously you're going to be wanting to be reaching out to all your people, all your prospects who are on the fence to be like, now's the time to get in. But like it's Christmas holidays, it's Family Day weekend. So for me, that was kind of the beginning of the end. And I remember saying that to a friend of mine on the team, being like, don't you hate that? And they're like, I love the deals. I love it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm just weird then. But yeah, for me, that was the beginning of the end for sure. And then I think a lot of it is just listening to intuition. And I was in a coaching call once where we were trying to figure out how to I don't even know how we came about to like what I post online. And it was summertime with my kids and they were really encouraging me. I touched on it in my story about putting a post of me with my kids at the pool and being like, isn't this so great because I can, do my business from anywhere and all this time freedom. And I remember saying to them, but that's not why. Like if I didn't have this business, I would have been at the pool with them anyway. And they were they just really didn't hear it. And they were like, trying to figure out a way to spin it that I would feel like I was telling the truth, but it still would point back to the business. And I was just like, wow, that's a slippery slope for me that I'm just not willing to cross. My younger sister has a line that she says, everyone has their line in the sand that they draw, where and everyone's line is different in terms of like the limit that you'll go to for what you want and like where your moral code is. And so for me, that was just a line in the sand where I was like, I'm not going to lie to people about what I'm doing. And so, which looking back, I can see times where like I probably did lie. I felt like I was close to the line, but I was lying. And so, but being able to be in that call with my upline and their upline, to actually hear them helping me formulate a way to do it, that was another one for me where I was like, nope, I think you guys don't know who I am. Like I'm not willing to do that. So maybe you don't know who I am.
They didn't after all,
Yeah.
And they didn't know, and they're just being just as easily like, it's these things become normal. It's like, this is just normal. And it's even when you're like reaching out to that other person, like, why isn't this weird? They're doing this during the holidays. I only just realized this recently because with the company I was with Mon 8, they'd always had sales during the holidays. I never made the connection until just like one of my previous interviews.
Okay.
And then when you said it, I'm like, of course it makes so much sense. I never made that connection. Like,
so you work. Yeah. So other people make money.
Yeah.
Of us working.
And it's meant to keep us always working, always just plugged in. And it gives the illusion that this is your hobby. I would say that too. I'm like, I would be doing this anyway. It's just a way of life. It's not a job, anything to distract me from like actually looking at what my expenses were.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest regrets is I won a blender. And then I gave it away because I was told that like, it didn't cost me anything to win it. So it's like it's like a free gift that I can give away. And every once in a while I'm like, dang it, I won that. I put time in, like I did earn that. I did pay for that.
Yeah.
Why did I give that away? But that's the one thing that I always just like laugh at myself about. I was like, I should have listened to my gut and not given that away.
Yeah. Damn it. Yeah.
Stupid blender.
I like to ask this question of people that come on here. And if you could go back in time and catch yourself before you're entering your MLM. And this is like under like the, you know, you're not going to disrupt time where like
Right.
horrible things will happen. Like it's going to be good. Like if you could actually somehow visit your younger version of yourself,
Right.
what would you say?
Yeah, that's a tough one. My husband always laughs at me because I hate playing the shoulda, coulda, woulda game. He loves it. Like
Yeah, I know it's rough. And you don't have to, you know, if it's too much, you could, you know, even like, because I find it's like trying to give advice to people, like just giving advice. And I sometimes think it might be helpful even just to spitball what we would say to ourselves, because we would say it in a different way, using different language and keywords as like,
right. Don't
you know, what 99% of people lose. It's like, it's like having a safe word for yourself or something. That's kind of like where I come from, but you can really say anything you want, you know?
For sure. What comes to mind that way is to say you're wiser than you think you are. So to trust myself over other people's opinions of what I should do. Kind of summing up my like, listen to your gut. What is your gut saying? Listen to the people that you trust. Like if it's people that you would trust with your life and they're giving you advice that contradicts what you're doing, I mean, just listen to it. You don't have to necessarily like do it gung ho, but take the time to actually listen to it and like just think critically about things. And and then just have the guts to stand up for yourself, to do what you need to do for yourself. Because I think that a lot of time gets wasted just getting stuck and being like, well, I've already invested this much, and I've already invested this much money, and I've already invested this much time and this much of my identity into it. I got to see it through to the end. And I just think, you know, just pause and wait. Like the world, how I left started with me being like, you know what, I'm just going to take the summer off. My kids are off school. I'm going to take the summer off social media, like, because my kids are getting older, and being like, I want a phone. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to go on my phone. And it just sort of, and like nothing terrible happened. Like nothing, you know, it's just like I didn't go on social media for 60 days, which meant I wasn't selling to anybody. And I said, I'm going to take the time off the business. I'm not going to join any calls. I'm not going to be available for connection calls. I am like, in my mind, I'm going like, you say you got time freedom for me? Like I'm calling your bluff, and I'm going to take time off. And it was like, honestly, the best thing I could have done, because that's what I knew I needed to do in the season for me. And I didn't know that it would result in all these future decisions, but to just taking that next step that you feel in your gut you need to take, regardless of what you think the next 18 steps might be, to just keep taking that next step. And you'll find people coming out of the woodwork that want to help you along for sure.